Alright, so boom. Arguably, the best way to save money is to put 30% of your income, like paycheck every bi-weekly or monthly, whatever it is, however often you get paid, into your savings account. Put 30% into your savings account and don't go out as often or at all. Essentially what I'm saying is pay yourself first despite the expenses you have. We always have a little bit of money left over. So pay yourself first, pay your expenses, and then commence with the rest of your budgeting. You don't understand how much money you actually save once you start cooking your own food rather than eating out all the time. The same $20, $30 that you spend eating out could last you for a week, maybe a week and a half, if you just cooked it and made it yourself.
You guys, listen. Okay.
So that's just my little pro tip, you know what I'm saying? But it's another installment of edutainment, so subscribe, like the video on the channel. My goal is to make sure that you're entertained, that you are laughing, but most importantly, that you are learning something that you can apply to your own personal life and make it better. Talk about addiction, specifically weed, and financial literacy. So we have another personal finance type of video, courtesy of Mr. Graham Stephan. I'm just playing. Graham Stephan. 5 tricks that save a lot of money fast. The best way, like I said, is to put 30% of your income into your savings account so that you can build up to that emergency fund of at least $1,000. And ideally, once you have that emergency fund and you pay off your debt, you want to ideally have a larger fund of at least 6 to 12 months worth of expenses saved up, or anywhere from 3 to 12 months worth of expenses, so that you can sleep comfortably at night. But let's get into it. Let's see what he has to say, and if he gets my cosign. So no long talk.
Guys, it's Graham here, so let's get right into it because we got an issue here. According to research, nearly 60% of adults do not have enough money saved to cover a $1,000 emergency. And nearly a third of those people would have to resort to borrowing money to pay for any unexpected expense, which, as we all know, adds up to a lot more money in the long run when you account for interest on top of that. And it's
that credit card shit. People, this is how people get into like credit card issues, right? You don't have an emergency fund, so use your credit card, right, to deal with the expense. But then you may not have the money at that moment in time to pay that bill on time, hence you get interest.
Shaking my head downtown in disgust. You fought niggas disappoint me. Shaking my damn head, yo. What the fuck is you talking about, my guy?
Therefore, paying more money than you initially did. And that's how you get into the whole credit card cycle of debt.
With this information that it's no surprise that Americans are just not saving enough money. Even when we go back and look at things historically, the average American savings rate really peaked in the 70s with a savings rate of about 12%. And then since then, it's been a very slow and steady decline. Now in 2019, guess how much the average American is saving? Wait for it, because I wasn't ready for this. You ready for this? It's 3.5% of their income. And that also includes Roth IRA and 401k contributions, which basically, when you account for inflation, it's almost as though Americans are pretty much saving nothing. Now, what's even more disheartening is that during recessions, savings immediately spikes upwards as shown on the gray lines in this graph. Then as soon as the economy starts doing better, the savings rate starts trending back downwards. This tells me that people can and do cut back if needed, but as soon as things start looking optimistic, they go back to their normal spending and start saving less.
Stack your money and act broke. If you always stack and act broke, you will always have money.
Today, if you made a stack today, tomorrow it might rain or snow in. You gotta understand every day ain't gonna be a good day. Have more than you show, speak less than you know.
Okay, who are you trying to impress? Will you even care about these people's opinions in 10 years, 30 years? Probably not.
Now, we can certainly look at external economic factors and a lack of wage growth to be the culprit for this, but I really believe that at the end of the day, it's really up to us to take personal responsibility to not only learn about savings, but also do the best that we can given the income that we have. And when it comes to saving money, these are the 5 tricks that I found that work exceptionally well to save a lot more money without ever feeling like you're cutting back, even though you are. And each of these money-saving tricks can be implemented immediately as long as you just follow these techniques and, of course, hit the like button if you haven't done that already. So with that said, let's get into the video. Now, my first trick is don't spend any money. Just kidding, obviously. Okay, no, but for real though, the first trick that I use is that if there's anything I'm looking to buy, I never buy it now, and instead, I buy it tomorrow. Now, this one is really just about cutting down on impulse purchases that you make without ever really realizing it. And this one is especially interesting once you start digging deeper. And this is because many studies have shown that shopping actually releases dopamine in the brain that brings about a sensation of happiness and well-being. And if we go even deeper down the rabbit hole, because this is what I was doing all last night, is researching the effects of shopping on the brain. Don't ask me why I found this stuff interesting, but here we go. This is the best part about all of this, is that they found the real dopamine hit doesn't come from actually buying the item that you're going out to get. Instead, it comes from the the anticipation of buying the item itself. From this, we could basically conclude that buying something won't necessarily give you that fun excitement that you're looking for. And you can get all of the same enjoyment from shopping if you just don't actually buy anything and if you just window shop instead in that.
Obviously, we see the novelty of anything new that you get, it wears off pretty quickly. Within a month or two, maybe 3 months max, it's like regular. Like even the iPhone now I got, like, I don't know, at this point in life now, I just don't get too high or too low. I just like stay even keel. Like even the whole like Kobe Bryant news, just like, you know, people are sad and shit, but like you just gotta just be like Kawhi. You know, you learn a lot from Kawhi Leonard, you know, the basketball player. He's never too happy, he's never too sad. He's just like...
Stay tuned, we got stuff cooking up in here. Gonna chop y'all up. Look at all of this. Karate style.
Like a robot. And obviously as well, right? If you can't buy it 2 or 3 times over, you can't afford it. If you can't buy the item at least twice or 3 times of the actual price, you can't afford it. Just chill out, wait until you can buy it in cash without having to pay installment purchases, which is also a financial scam. Pay it in cash, just pay stuff in cash. Just pay it in cash, wait 24 hours, and if you can't buy it 2 or 3 times over, if you can't buy it twice or 3 times, you can't afford it.
Happens to save you a lot of money. This is pretty much the strategy that I've utilized all the time. If there's something I see that I want to get, all I do is basically just don't buy it right then and there. Instead, I'll just sleep on it and wait to buy it the next day. By then, if I still want it, most of the time I'll get it. But I would say more times than not, the desire to buy that thing just subsides and I no longer want it the next day. I'm positive if you just implement the same thing, you can cut back and save a lot of money without ever feeling like you're cutting back or saving money just by waiting 24 hours. A second, assuming you've waited a day and you're thinking about buying something, then think to yourself, if someone me the cash equivalent for this item right now, would I rather just have the cash? Sometimes we forget about how much something really costs when we're so fixated on just buying the thing that we want. But start thinking to yourself, if you had the choice between buying this item or getting paid that exact amount of money, which one would you choose? By the way, I got this for free at some YouTube event, so don't think that I'm spending $400 on Dolce & Gabbana sunglasses. But anyway, in essence, if you decide not to buy something and save the difference, it's almost as though you just got paid to save. Now I know this is a bit of a flawed way of thinking because I could totally just say to myself,
oh, you know what? I was totally just about to buy this $2 million Bugatti, but I decided not to do it. So I just saved $2 million by not buying the Bugatti.
That would be, by the way, an amazing clickbait title. Can you just imagine it? How I saved $2 million by not buying a Bugatti. I can see it now, 1 million views. But anyway, when you apply this mentality to normal everyday purchases you don't really spend much time thinking about, it really gets you prioritizing what's important and what's going to give you the most long-term value, and really helps make you think more about the aspect of saving money than the aspect of buying the thing that you...
This is extremely beneficial to the topic of addiction, right? But like the money you spend towards, you know, smoking weed, the money you spend towards your coffee, the money you spend towards alcohol, like, would you rather have the money in cash than constantly be spending it? Because the quote I always hold true in every single video that I talk about is too much of any good thing is good for nothing. It doesn't feed you, like it doesn't nurture you and make you better, you just cut it off. Like, are you at a point in life where you want to be at that these things are helping you or they're assisting you, right? If you are trying to build your own brand, build your own company, it's weed, coffee, alcohol, or you using it too much and all the money you're spending on it, is it helping you in any way get closer to your end goal, you know? That's just something to take inventory of.
Want. Now this becomes especially evident when you look around at all of the things that you've bought. How much of that do you wish you could trade back with a snap of your fingers and get back what you spent on it? And I have a feeling that probably half of my wardrobe would be gone from things that I bought that I just never really wore and they just were not worth it. Especially when you divide how many times you've actually used something versus how much it costs. Like the $100 pair of shoes you wore twice. That means it costs you $50 every time you've worn those shoes. Or that $300 Bose speaker that you've used like 5 times in the last year, that means it was $60 every time you've used it. So begin thinking of everything in terms of how much it costs you per use and also whether or not you would have taken the cash equivalent if you had the choice. And I guarantee that by doing this, you'll end up spending a lot less, and by virtue of that, you'll end up saving a lot more. Now the third trick to saving money is to think to yourself, how many hours will I have to work to pay for it? So if you're making $20 an hour...
Facts, bro. I always use this method in my thinking, right? How many hours of life? Well, I don't think like as an employee anymore, but like I still think about it like in general. Like, how many hours of life does this actually cost? Like a video game costs $60. Is this worth 3 hours of life? I think it was one movie called Time by Justin Timberlake. I think it was in that movie, and essentially anytime someone bought something, they would be closer to death.
Allow me to introduce my mother-in-law, Clara, my wife Michelle, and my daughter Sylvia.
So let's say they had 100 hours of life and they bought like food that was maybe worth $5. Now they'd be at 95 hours of life. Or if they bought a car that was worth maybe $1,000 and they had $10,000 of life, now there'd be 9,000 hours of life left. Every hour less essentially was closer to death. That video, that movie, yo, phenomenal. So just think about whatever it is you buy, think about, is it worth X amount of hours of life based on your current like salary or paycheck and stuff like that.
$20 an hour and you decide to drop $60 on dinner, in a way that dinner is costing you 3 hours of your time to pay for it. Or going and spending $20 on your lunch break is basically the equivalent of you working an extra hour just to pay for it. This is pretty much the entire premise of the book, Your Money or Your Life, which by the way, if you have not read this book, absolutely I highly recommend reading it. But if you're not going to read it and you're going to ignore me on that, I'm just going to summarize the entire book in like a minute. Basically, we all have a very limited amount of time on this planet, and it's really up to us to make the best use of that time, not only from a financial standpoint, but also from personal fulfillment.
Seneca said, "It is not that we have too little time. A gracious amount of time has been given to us, if used correctly." Something to ponder upon. Philosopher Seneca.
Given that, it's really vital that we spend our money on the things that are most important to us. And since our time is such a limited resource, we shouldn't waste our time working for things that don't bring us long-term value. And sometimes when you consider how long you're going to have to work to pay for something that you might not actually use, it really makes you reconsider whether or not that thing is worth buying in the first place. And I think the same way when I'm working out and going to the gym. Like I think to myself, would I rather eat a Snickers bar and then spend 40 minutes on the treadmill to burn it off? Or would I rather just not eat the Snickers bar? And I think we all know the answer to that is that I would rather spend 40 minutes on the treadmill to burn off the Snickers bar because they're delicious. Anyway, I'm kidding. The answer is I don't eat the Snickers bar. It's a lot easier to cut things out than it is to burn them off. And the same thing also applies to spending. Like it's a lot easier not to buy something than it is to make more money to pay for it. And again, when you start thinking this way, I guarantee that you'll become more mindful about where you spend your money and just understanding how long that's going to take you to pay for it. Now fourth, a fun exercise that you can do anytime you spend less money or save something is by immediately transferring that to another account. Now this is a really great way to not only make sure that you actually save that money, but it's also really effective because you could begin seeing the immediate results of saving as soon as you save by having more money in the bank account. Like for instance, instead of going out and spending $20 at lunch, you cooked at home and that only cost you $10. Now since you went ahead and saved that $10, go ahead and transfer $10 from that account to another account that you're going to be saving up money in. Then apply that to every single one of your other expenses where you can cut back and save money. And when you start doing this, you'll just watch the savings add up over time. Again, this is really just about seeing an immediate reward for slowly cutting back over time and beginning to see your results in real time. I really think once you begin seeing it work firsthand, you're going to be really excited about the aspect of just having extra money laying around, and you'll be more likely to stick with it. And fifth, most importantly, think of what your money is going to be worth in its future value. Like when you save and invest your money, it's going to grow over time, and when you go and spend it, it's really like you're halting the growth of what that money would have been worth had you saved and invested it instead. So if instead of buying avocado toast, you just took that $20 and invested it over the next 40 years, and we took the average historic return of the stock market adjusted for inflation with dividends reinvested, it's a lot to say, that $20 will have turned into nearly $300 of future money. So I just think to myself, okay, is this avocado toast really worth $300 in the future? And if the answer is no, then I just don't buy it. Now I'm a nutcase and I think of everything this way. Like a $5 cup of coffee at Starbucks to me is like, well, is that really worth $75 of future money? And the answer is no, because I can make coffee myself for about 20 cents a cup and you pour in the Coffee Mate coconut creamer and it's delicious and it tastes way better than Starbucks for a fraction of the price. So start thinking of all of your purchases in the same way as well and really ask yourself if what you're buying is going to add the equivalent amount of value now than you would have in the future had you just saved and invested it. And if the answer is no, then don't buy it. And if you do decide it's going to be worth it, then by all means, absolutely go for it. There's always a fine line between living in the moment and enjoying life and saving for the future.
Make your own shit, man. Make your own shit. Make your own food. Be your own chef. You know what I'm saying? There's more than enough cooking tutorials on YouTube about how to make jollof rice if you're, from the continent of Africa, or how to make pounded yam or macaroni. Cook your own shit. Think about life in terms of hours of time spent, and really ask yourself, do you really need this extra stuff laying around your house? You're trying to get on your minimalism shit so that you are able to maximize your living space, maximize your lifestyle, and minimize your expenses and liabilities. But yo, God bless, much love, peace and joy, namaste. Always remember, it doesn't feed you, don't water it, and too much of any good thing, too much stuff, hoarders out there in the world.
Oh my God, a lot to clean up.
I don't even know where to start in there.
What's that?
There's a binder on the shelf that says things I want to buy. That's a big binder.
We're finding a little bit of everything. It's
too much of any good thing is good for nothing. Alright.
Little baby like whoa, she came my way and I felt it all go when she say my name. Little shawty want me for the love, not fame, but yeah, I still gotta flex in my off-white J's. Little baby